there's this thing called perfectly imperfect passions. So we always try, when we're not in the flow, it's because we're trying to be perfect rather than imperfectly perfect, right? And following our passion. So this is one of the spiritual paradoxes that brings me a sense of both joy and freedom. A well-lived life is full of perfect imperfections and passion, right? So, in my life, there was a time when I strove to be perfect. I think it peaked when I was 12 years old. I was the oldest in mind I ever was. And it was Easter morning. I had on this beautiful white and green dress, full dress. We're sitting out on the front porch getting our pictures taken as we did every Easter morning. I had my long blonde hair was pulled back. I had this dark green headband that matched the belt on my dress. And sitting out in the front porch, the full skirt was just spread out perfectly in a semicircle, just posed like a photographer would pose you. My dad was a photographer in World War II, so that's how he did it, right? And so there was just a bare hint of a smile. And I sat up tall and proud because I was about to enter the world to be a perfect adult. And I was going to have to pay adult prices on restaurants and the movie. And this was so great. And my dad didn't think it was so great, but I did. And but then, of course, life disappointed me. Whenever I thought I had mastered being perfect, something would happen to trip me up and remind me of my humanity. We're not perfect, right? We're all a work in progress. No matter how hard I tried, being perfect eluded me time after time. There was some of the big ones I remember was getting halfway to the airport and realizing that I had left the tickets at home. Zipping back to home, and we made it, but only because they were holding the door for me. But we made it. Or most recently, we went down to Asilomar, and I had dropped my phone, so my phone wasn't working anyway. But I didn't have a charger because I had left all my chargers at home, so my watch didn't work. I thought that they didn't have any hair dryers. I'd left my hair dryer at home, and so I had to air dry my hair. It was about 90% humidity, so I had these beautiful beach curls. It's like, wow, didn't know that would still happen. So it was a lot of fun, but I had to just let go and just be. I was on a real retreat, and then also, but then there's this kind of workaholic tendency of perfectionism that's alive and well in me, and I can remember finishing a report at work one time, and I got it done. I had a boss who really wanted it done on time, but the result is that I was late picking up my daughter from daycare, which was probably a worse impact on her than getting that report done. But we're not perfect, right? And so one of the ways that I have reconciled not being able to do almost everything perfectly, or even do some things perfectly, was to sort through what I was most passionate about, and to focus on first things first, right? Some things are worth doing at an A level, and some things are worth doing at a C level, and some things are not really worth doing at all, right? So and also another thing that's important is to take time for spiritual practice, to experience that divine presence, to share that joy, wisdom, and peace with other people through my ministry, right? To be a center of that presence in the world. Another priority is to enjoy being with my husband and traveling together, right? And to stay connected with our children. To do things that support maintaining a healthy environment. So another thing for me that's really important is doing things that maintain a healthy environment. So what things are you guys passionate about? What's really important to you? Just name one thing. What? Grandkids. Yes, of course. That's traveling, right? Adam? Ukulele. Got to have a little bit of that this morning, right? Adam? Parents? Yeah. So we have all these things that are really important to us, but we spend so much time worrying about all this other stuff, and what's really important. Now, why don't we spend all of our time pursuing our passions? Passion doesn't require perfection. In fact, it's self-doubt is what can freeze us. It's easy enough to doubt ourselves and our abilities. But, in our amygdala in our brainstem creates our first reaction to any threatening situation. It launches us into that freeze, flight, or flee reaction, right? We're hardwired with this survival instinct, which was really great when we had to deal with tigers and fighting, all those kinds of things. But it also means that it's easy to believe that we aren't good enough to handle a difficult situation, or we fear that someone won't want the gifts that we have to offer, right? We feel afraid when we come out of our comfort zone in unfamiliar territory with new people, right? Will they welcome us? Well, if you're here at CSL Tahoe-Truckee, you'll be welcomed. But it's not that way everywhere. Some people may start believing that someone is out to get us even, right? All of that idea. There's so many people now that really get caught up in that. And we can believe that we must compete for a limited supply of whatever it is we want, jobs or opportunities, desirable partners perhaps. The universe responds to this false belief by saying, okay, and blocking our ability to see the possibilities that would manifest for us other than what we're afraid of, right? What we fear comes upon us. And sometimes people, when they run into this kind of adversity and obstacles, they just give up, and they just stay stuck where they are. It's a known awfulness, right, that they want to stay with. Now, Steve Maraboli, in his book Unapologetically You, says, stop trying to fix yourself. You're not broken. You are perfectly imperfect and powerful beyond measure. It's important to realize that our dreams and our passions are valid. They have a reason for existing. As they manifest in the world, it's like we're planting a seed, nurturing it as it sprouts and grows into first a seedling and then gradually matures into a plant or a tree, right? But we judge ourselves and our first steps when we try something new by standards that are set by others that may have practiced for many years whatever it is that we're trying to accomplish. Yale and Stanford psychologists, writing over the last 15 years, they claim that rather than being something innate, passions grow through persistence, right? It's not just something that we're born with. It's something that there might be a seed there, but we have to develop it. We don't just find those passions. And so their research dispels that common theory that if you don't enjoy something the first time, you may not have a natural interest in it. Well, sometimes you have to try something out a few times before you get over that, this is too difficult feeling, and it becomes something good. You have a new habit, a new way of being that you're setting in place. Now, there's lots of examples of people who did develop those passions. A great artist, Vincent van Gogh, began painting as a beginner. He took classes and experimented with new colors and painting techniques. And we don't have to expect that our first painting will be as great as the Starry Night, right? But sometimes we expect that of ourselves. Our founder, Ernest Holmes, he inspired audiences with his talks in large audiences and on the radio, but not before he had earned a certificate in elocution. He'd studied Emerson and other philosophers and spent many hours in meditation, so he was inspired. He was channeling spirit when he spoke. Lindsey Vonn, she fell in the snow many, many times before she won Olympic gold. Right? Lots of practice there. A few broken bones, but all of these admired and successful people followed their passions, and even when it was scary, and even when they encountered opposition. Now, there's an excellent example of Jim Carrey and his dad. Now, Jim Carrey had a natural talent and passion for being dramatic and funny. He had plenty of time to practice, though, because his parents would invite friends over when he was a child so he could entertain them. So he got to practice and develop his shtick, as you will. He quickly discovered that he found great joy in making people laugh, and he was good at it. With much persistence, Carey became first a stand-up comedian and then an actor. Now, Carey practices transcendental meditation, and he credits visualization techniques with much of his career successes. Right? The law of attraction he spoke about on Oprah Winfrey one day. In a video that was posted by the Daily Mail, Jim Carey described a valuable lesson he learned from his father. So many of us choose our path out of fear disguised as practicality, Carey said. My father could have been a great comedian, but he didn't believe that it was possible for him. So he made a conservative choice, and instead he got a job as an accountant. Regular paycheck, take care of that family. But Carey reveals the moral of the story. When I was 12 years old, he was let go from that safe job. Our family had to do whatever we could to survive. I learned many great lessons from my father, not the least of which is that you can fail at what you don't want, so you might as well take a chance on doing what you do want to do. Right? Now, Carey started performing stand-up comedy as a teenager while he worked odd jobs to help his family. So he kept that cash flow going while he practiced. But he kept following his passion as being a comedian and actor and making audiences laugh. He even tried out for SNL 3 times and got rejected all 3 times. This is Jim Carey. Can you imagine? You know? But his life has been about thriving rather than just surviving. Right? He kept that passion front and center. So when we're following our passion, we need to give ourselves permission to experiment, to fail, to try again, to get better, and eventually succeed, right? And so one of the things that can hold us back, though, in developing our passions is fear of failure, right? Now, each of us is a unique expression of that one life that is God. And as we develop our passions, we are often going out of our comfort zone and trying something new. We're open to growth and expansion because we believe in our dream. It's a project we're working on. Even so, when we try something new, not every step is success. Some efforts will fail, right? So what gives us the courage to pick ourselves up and try again when we fail? It's a sense of passion and purpose in whatever it is that we're attempting to do, because it's part of that divine impulse, that passion. Every mistake is only a learning step towards reaching our dream. Rather than freezing with self-condemnation and fear, we let the universe playfully experiment and practice with delight as it expresses itself through us. We can trust our higher power to guide us. Instead of becoming a clone of everyone else, we are learning to be someone new, to be ourselves, and share our unique gifts with the world. Now, Intuit is a software company that gives a special reward for the best failure, and they create failure parties to celebrate them. Right? They want people to risk doing something new, going out of that comfort zone. Intuit co-founder Scott Cook states, "Every failure teaches something important that can be the seed for the next great idea." Another company, Google, we all know that name, gives out rewards for making mistakes and taking risks. Now, both companies recognize that lessons come out of discovering what doesn't work, and it's as important as discovering what does work. Right? You have to think out of the box to move forward. Gary Zukov, in his book Soul to Soul, says, "Every circumstance serves equally the evolution of all involved, offering each individual the perfect opportunity to create anew and hopefully create more wisely and compassionately." A perfect example of this is Steve Jobs. Now, he invented the Apple computer, built that great empire, great stock, and then he was fired from his own company because his business skills weren't as good as his computer science skills, right? And then, after a while, his company hired him back because they needed those computer skills. They could take care of the business part, but they needed his computer skills and insight. And the reading that Carol shared with us this morning, based on John 14, which says, "Let not your heart be troubled. You believe in God, believe also in me." Now, as Ernest Holmes explained in the Science Mind textbook, our hearts become troubled over many things when we're working to develop our passions, right? And yet Jesus spoke from that consciousness of deep inner peace when he said, when he told his followers to believe in God, and because of their belief in God, to also believe in him. Now, here's an instance where Holmes is describing the concept of the universal I am. He says, there is one infinite mind from which all things come. And there is one infinite substance, and every time a person moves, they are moving within that substance, right? There's no separation. And each time a person speaks, they are setting that one infinite law of manifestation into motion. And because we are each a center in that one, every time we shift into consciousness, into that Christ consciousness of oneness with the one, and say, I am, we are proclaiming that we are an individualized expression of the one, an outward manifestation of the universal I am. And that's so when Jesus is saying, believe in me, he's saying, believe in that Christ consciousness that is also within you. Right? Now, Ernest Holmes also goes in to say, we are to believe in ourselves because we believe in God. The two are one. Right? So it's a very fundamental part of New Thought. There is no separation between us and God. We are one. How powerful is that? I mean, it's amazing that, God isn't something out there, this figure in the sky, in white robe and a long beard that's out there that we have to please and beg. No, God is all around us, within us. It's expressing itself as us, and each and every person that we meet, each and every situation, God, the presence and power of God is there also. And so our purpose and our passion and the impulse and the drive to follow and manifest that passion, it also comes from that divine source. So how to achieve that is a package that comes with that impulse. Any self-doubts that we have were created by us, by our non-belief, not by our higher self. And therefore, we can let go of those self-doubts. And this is where the grace of God comes in as our superpower. And this is where we can get into that flow that Jared was singing about this morning. And so as we develop our passions and go through the process of progressively manifesting our purpose in ever greater and greater measure, we can remember that even though the evolving form may not fully yet match what we're seeking to create, we can trust that we are part of that onward march of the soul. The reading concluded this morning. We are to know that passing events cannot hinder the onward march of the soul. The temporal imperfection of the human cannot dim the eternal integrity of the divine. That is where the perfection lies, and that idea that is seeking to manifest. So, another part of having our passions manifest is that we learn to step back and see the big picture. Seeing the perfection that is underlying all events and creation. We also want to avoid judging the outcome of our efforts too soon, or taking score too soon. We've got this standard that we're trying to achieve, and if we're on step one, and it's many thousands of steps out there, we don't want to judge ourselves as being a failure. We're just on the pathway, right? And so Christian Sorensen, in his book, Living from the Mountaintop, he says, when you're too close to something, it's impossible to see the larger picture. The defense system of your myopic vision will keep you from going outside the norm and acceptable peer projection, right? We hold ourselves back. So an example that can help us understand that is a tapestry. So if you look up close at that tapestry, it looks like a random mass of threads and colors, and you can't tell what it is. It makes no sense. You can't even really tell that it's thread necessarily. Is it a sun, flowers, a building, a symbol? What's a symbol of? And this is in our lives when we're trying to do something and we're too close, and we're just right there with what we're doing, feeling, we feel separate. We feel alone. We're hyper-focused. We're separate from God. Now, if we step back and see the big picture, then we have context. We see how everything is woven together into a perfect pattern. This is when we're sensing the wholeness of the situation, that we are one with the one. It's not just the bits and pieces. It's not just what appears right in front of our eyes, but it's the whole of it. It's the beginning and the end, the Alpha and the Omega, and being a part of God. So if you can keep that slide up for a little bit longer. This tapestry is an Azerbaijani carpet. Now, the intricately designed and hand-woven carpets of wool, cotton, or silk carry their messages with flowers, animals, magical symbols, biblical motifs, scenes from poetry, and even portraits of respected leaders are woven into their carpets. The motifs and patterns used in the carpets convey messages used to convey fertility, protection, spirituality, and the natural world. The tradition of woven carpets dates back before the time of Muhammad to the Bronze Age. So many of the symbols are stylized representations of dragons and Zoroastrianism, and yes, they have the special prayer carpets that are part of the Muslim tradition, but it's more than that. And each carpet and its messages are treasured by its owners and the family. Right? Now, as recently as the early 20th century, Azerbaijani households had no chairs, armchairs, or sofas. They only had carpets rather. And in those days, they said that a carpet accompanied a person from birth to death. Right? They were a very important part of their culture. In their houses, sometimes the houses, if they had a big family, could be as big as a football field. Imagine that. And so they would weave maybe 5 carpets that would be laid side by side to cover that whole area. This is where the family lived. The children would play on the carpets. When girls married, they received a carpet as a dowry. And the bodies of deceased people were covered with a carpet from beginning to end. These valuable and beautiful carpets are treasured and passed down from generation to generation, even when they become worn and shabby, because they record the spiritual experience of the Absolute, right? And the values and the beliefs of the Azerbaijani people. If you try to leave the country with one, if it's 50 years old or more, it's not allowed. They're so treasured in that country. So the Azerbaijani carpets, then, are a backdrop for the life of wholeness, keeping everything in perspective. Now, this is a picture of a young woman, Aziza Mustafasad. She's a 21-year-old professional carpet weaving teacher in Baku, Azerbaijan. And in this display of her weavings in progress, the rugs and pillows, you can see how she has mastered the various patterns, colors, and intricate detail of portraits and images that convey the spiritual inspiration for her carpet weaving students, and the families who commission their very pricey but well-crafted carpets. Right? Your tapestry is unique to you and cannot be compared to anyone else. You alone know the purpose and reason behind each thread and color as you weave it in your life. And as you weave that life tapestry, you can choose to weave together your unique gifts and passionately develop them into a life that is filled with purpose, with love, and with great meaning. Pulling all of this together, we get to choose whether we want to live our lives feeling as if we were unworthy or as if we are living in those greater possibilities created by our higher self. There is no separation between us and the whole of the infinite invisible. We are one with the one, and we are each a divine seed waiting to sprout, right? Or maybe we've already sprouted and we're growing. The passions that call us forward inspire us to fulfill our unique purpose and express our part of the one, of the infinite invisible. What limits our progress? Our old beliefs of limitation, unworthiness, and fears that our gifts are unwanted or that we will fail. By boldly stepping out in faith and that we are one within one, we can take risks and develop the passions and expand the gifts that we and share them with the world. Take the time to vision for your personal future, your passion and your purpose, and then take the time and the effort to develop your passion and expand your experiences. This is the joy of being alive and being perfectly imperfect. Let's take this to prayer. And so, in this moment, we allow ourselves to just let go of whatever it is that we've been worrying about, of the rain coming, of the fires, and all of this going, whatever's happening in our life before or after the service, the power outage tomorrow, whatever it is, and we allow ourselves to just be, and remember that God is all there is. That one life that is wholeness, that is love, that is light, that is joy, that is deep, abiding peace and wisdom. That is the truth of the universe. That is the underlying life force of the universe. And in this moment, as we let go, we sense that power and presence of the divine within our own being, healing and soothing us, every nook and cranny being filled with the light and joy of freedom, of being alive. And that passion now arises front and center. And so we pursue that passion with joy, knowing that all that was required to bring it into manifestation is now provided in us and through us and as us and by the world around us supporting us. And when we feel that there is opposition or resistance, we go within and check and see and assess, are we on the path? Are we guided back to the path? But we start centered in spirit, one with spirit, knowing that all is well, all is flowing from the one without any hindrance, with that divine guidance. And so, as we live in our passion, we feel fully alive. We experience joy and love. We share it with the world. We share it with our loved ones in our family. We share it with our dear friends here in the Center for Spiritual Living Tahoe-Truckee, and we allow it to spill out into the world and the community to make it a better place. We use it to love the environment and to care for it with love and attention, knowing that it is also a divine creation. It is good to be alive. I am so grateful to be a part of it, to be a part of the flow that is abundant in every good way. All is well. And I say thank you, Father, Mother, God, for this moment, for this knowing, for this truth manifesting as our passion and purpose for each one of us, individually and collectively, as the Center for Spiritual Living Tahoe-Truckee. And as we move forward, that purpose for being here is made clear to us, each one of us. And we make decisions with confidence, knowing that we are about fulfilling that divine purpose and passion. All is well. All is God. And so I release these words knowing that it is already done and even greater. And so it is. And so we let it be. Amen.